Become a sustaining member of the Commonwealth Club for just $10 a month. Join today.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's program, The Great American Lie with Jennifer Siebel Newsom in conversation with student filmmakers from the Representation Project's Youth Media Academy program. I'm Julie Parker Bonello, co-founder of Chicken and Egg Pictures and board member of the Gruber Family Foundation. This program is part of the Commonwealth Club's Youth Talk series and is presented jointly by Inforum and the club's education initiative, Creating Citizens, in collaboration with the Representation Project, a nonprofit organization dedicated to challenging gender norms through transformative storytelling to build a more just world. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our speakers for today's event. Moderator Jennifer Siebel Newsom is the writer, director, and producer of 3 documentary films, the founder of the Representation Project, and she also happens to be California's first partner. Jennifer is joined today by 3 young women who have used their own personal experiences to create powerful documentary films that address important social issues. Angelica Rubio is a high school senior in Merced, California. Samira Barragan is an 11th grader who lives in Santa Fe Springs, California. And Trainisha Shearer is a high school senior in Portland, Oregon. All of these inspiring young women are alumni of the Representation Project's 2020 Summer Youth Media Academy, a program that trains the next generation of social justice filmmakers to use storytelling to challenge inequity and change culture. Before I hand things over to our panel, I want to thank both the Commonwealth Club and the Representation Project for partnering on today's event. On behalf of the board of the Gruber Family Foundation, it is our great pleasure to provide financial support to these wonderful organizations. I know you will be moved and inspired by what you're about to hear from Jennifer and the Representation Project's student filmmakers. Please consider making a financial contribution to these worthwhile organizations, ensuring that the Commonwealth Club produces more events like this one, and that the Representation Project expands its student filmmaking programs. Now, please join me in welcoming our speakers to the Commonwealth Club. We'll get things started by watching the trailer for The Great American Lie. When we come back, we'll join Jennifer Siebel Newsom and our student panel. Thank you and enjoy the program.
We're a society of do-it-yourself. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. When you don't have boots, it's hard.
Inequality is the issue of today.
We're nearing a place where half of America is living in poverty. That's got to be our top priority for the world's richest country.
The very richest Americans, those in the top 1%, have been gaining a larger and larger share of the economic pie, while the earnings of people in the middle of the income distribution have been stagnant, and the earnings of the people at the bottom of the income distribution have actually been falling.
That's not an income gap, that is an income canyon.
We're asking families of 4, 5, 6 to live on very low means they cannot own. They, barely can rent.
The 140 million Americans are living one paycheck away or one child's illness away from complete financial devastation.
That's not really living, that's just not dying.
When the family you're born into, the zip code where you're born, determines your destiny, that tears at the fabric of the American dream.
What we need is one fair wage.
We want to work! No justice, no peace!
We're
we have to do as a society is stop being blind to history, stop being blind to systems. Understand that your privilege is actually built on my oppression.
We create inequalities by what we choose to value and what we choose to ignore.
It costs us a lot more to allow this level of poverty to exist than it would cost to fix it. But to fix it would require some empathy and compassion that America lacks.
What's at stake is fundamentally what America is about.
Thanks, Julie. It's so great to be with all of you today. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's virtual program at the Commonwealth Club. Yes, I'm Jennifer Siebel Newsome, the writer, director, and producer of 3 documentary films, Misrepresentation, The Mask You Live In, and my latest film, The Great American Lie. And I'm also the first partner of California, and so I'm really excited to be with all of you today. The Great American Lie looks at worsening economic inequality and how our country's hyper-masculine value system has loaded the American dream with extreme masculine ideals about money, power, and rugged individualism at the expense of more feminized ideals like care and community. The organization I founded, the Representation Project, works to awaken people's consciousness and shift their attitudes and behavior around limiting gender norms, ultimately aiming to transform culture. And one of the ways we do this is by hosting these incredible young individuals and future media stars at our annual Youth Media Academy, a free 4-week summer program where we train these youth in the power of transformative storytelling, ensuring that diverse voices and perspectives proliferate media in all forms. Passing the mic and elevating the voices of these young people is critical. 2 weeks ago, Amanda Gorman read a poem at the Biden-Harris inauguration, and it captivated our hearts and minds, inspiring us all to work diligently to build a more just and equitable future. And so today we've invited these 3 remarkable student filmmakers from the Representation Project's 2020 Youth Media Academy to continue the conversation around limiting gender norms and cultural change. So once again, please welcome Angelica Rubio, Samira Barragan, and Trainisha Shear. All right. Good afternoon to all of you. I just wanted to kind of get real here with you and acknowledge that I became a documentary filmmaker because I believe in the power of stories to change hearts and minds, attitudes and behaviors, and ultimately transform culture. And as fellow storytellers and filmmakers, I want you to please share an example of a time when a story in any medium, screen, print, audio, or elsewhere, helped open your own hearts and minds and change the way you responded to the world around you. Who wants to start?
I can start.
Trainisha, go ahead.
All right, so the story that really influenced me was the movie Pursuit of Happiness, because at a young age, that was about like the first real movie that I've seen, like that was about real life and real life issues and stuff. So that really opened my eyes to like the financial struggles and what one really has to do to get like a really good job and provide for their family and things like that.
Great, thanks, Trainisha. Samira?
Yes, something that has really opened my mind is Alan Watts audio videos that I watch on YouTube, and they're really calming and they expand my knowledge on how big the universe really is and how more there is just than what we've created in this planet today.
Thank you. Angelica?
I wanted to follow along with Trainisha. I love The Pursuit of Happiness, and I think that Will Smith portrayed his character in a phenomenal way. Being homeless and supporting his son while he's looking for a job on his own is remarkable because he made it possible to work with what he had. It sets this idea of, if he can do it, why can't I? Which leads me to another story that opened my eyes, and it was called The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. This story was mainly about a young boy who couldn't afford going to school, so he taught himself. His village suffered from famine, which is basically a shortage of food, and nobody had a solution except for the little boy. As the village ignored him, the boy managed to convince his dad that he had a solution, and he managed to get the village to come together and build the windmill. This was significant to me because it showed how you can't underestimate someone based on their age and color. Not only that, but the boy had limited resources, and he didn't let that get in the way as an excuse.
Thank you. So, economic inequality is as bad as it was before the Great Depression, and it's only been made worse by COVID-19. My new film, The Great American Lie, argues that inequality and the systemic causes of inequality dating back to our country's founding are a result of an imbalance of our values, an exaltation of rugged individualism combined with a deprioritization, some might even argue stigmatization, of partnership in the collective. This notion that there's no leak on your side of our boat, that we are in this together. Can you share your personal views on economic inequality and your own perceptions of the values that you see as prevailing, right or wrong, in our country? Traineesha, do you want to start?
Yes, I can start. I definitely agree that values really influence the outcome of the economy and financial situations. So yesterday I was actually watching a movie called South Side with You or something like that. It's about like Barack and Michelle Obama, how they met and stuff like that. So and in that movie, he talked about how he was trying to get a community to build a community center together. And he talked about how the values of the government have to align with the values of the community in order for something to happen. And I really believe that that's true. And that's kind of why like gentrification and stuff like that happens in communities, because like, you know, the government wants to make more money and other people want new, more expensive homes, stuff like that. And so they come into communities and obstruct things. But I just really agree with the fact that values affect the community and they affect financial situations in the community. And values that I see in the world today are things like selflessness, you know, greed that lead to things like gentrification.
Angelica or Samira? Samira, you want to answer?
Yes. I want to say that I find an issue wrong in the country and the world because there's so much greed over a piece of paper that we call money, and how I find it unjust how like a long time ago people just gave it a meaning, and there's the rich that, you know, they live good, they have their homes and their family, while the working class or the lower class are, you know, working blood, sweat, and tears to just get that piece of paper. So I think there's something that needs to be addressed through storytelling with that.
Thanks, Samira. Angelica?
I totally agree. I find occupational sex segregation to be unfair due to the gender stereotypes and unequal pay, especially when men and women tend to work in different jobs. There's also racial discrimination, pay gaps, and wage inequality that still occur in our country.
Great, guys. Thanks. Now I'm going to get into each of your films, and I want to talk to you first, Angelica, about your film, but let's play a short clip.
I sleep in a room with my mom and sister. I share a house with another family. I can't communicate with my mom because she doesn't speak English, and I don't speak Spanish fluently. My mom and sister, both single mothers, work most of the day while I care for my sister's 3 kids. There's no privacy, and every decision that I can make is already made for me.
Can you tell me, Angelica, why you selected the title Filters of Life and how your film lends insight into your experience as a young person living in the world I illustrated in The Great American Lie? And what do you hope audiences will learn from your experience in your film?
There are many different versions of life, and for you, it is going to be based on your own perspective. There's filters used in pictures, and there's filters used in life. You get to decide which filter you use. My film described my personal issues with my family and how I felt limited in what I was able to do because of situations that I was put under. I was never able to experience the American dream because of this. I hope that the audience understands that sometimes the best decision to make is to make the decision alone. You are capable of your own freedom and you have the voice to change the world.
Thank you, Angelica. It's beautiful. And I want to say that because I feel protective of you and you're such a talent, all of you ladies, but I want the American dream and the California dream to work for you. So we're not giving up, okay? Samira, let's play a short clip from your film.
The first time I heard the word gentrification, I had no idea what it was or what it could do. Not until I saw my neighborhood slowly changing, and a lot of more houses were being shut down and a lot of more businesses as well. And most neighbors that have always been here aren't here anymore.
Can you tell us what's happening in your community that sparked your desire to produce gentrification? What is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about bringing in big businesses, all at the expense of smaller, locally owned businesses, which are often owned by people of color?
So in the community, there seems to be a lot of new businesses and coming in and bringing in aesthetically pleasing, stores such as vintage stores or coffee shops, and they wipe out the old businesses, and all the old time residents can do, the seniors, is just window shopping, and I think what people they have a misconception of the big businesses by thinking that it's just remodeling and improvements, but some people don't know what can go on behind all that remodeling.
So let's play a short clip from Trainisha's film.
Black isn't in the rainbow, but it's the color of our skin. Black doesn't just turn on. It's a constant power from within. Black isn't a weapon, but it's often used to run as thin.
Trainisha, Black Till It's Backward was originally created as a poem for Black History Month event. You did an excellent job of raising the point that the word free can have different meanings to different people based on the color of their skin. What does free mean to you as a young Black woman living in the United States in 2021? You conclude your film with the statement, to get new information, you need a new perspective, get informed. What do you see as steps that our audience can take to achieve this?
Free to me means mostly just being well educated, being financially stable, and being understood. By understood, I mean like not being misrepresented in the media and really like having a connection with people around you. And things that people can do to get informed is just be open to those connections and really get to know other people's stories and where they come from and just their life and how they've had to live it.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to asking you all questions together, and whoever wants to jump in, feel free to unmute yourself. But what are some of the connections that you saw between The Great American Lie and the film that you produced this summer? And in what ways does this impact or affect the way that you now communicate with your family or society? Samira?
The comparison that I saw was that gentrification and the issue was talked about and how this affects families and how they have to leave everything behind because of people choosing property over over families, sorry. And this has affected the way I see life and society with my family and others by how I'd like to spread more knowledge and learn on the way more things.
That's great. Thank you. Traineesha or Angelica?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Traineesha.
Thank you. Some similarities that I found between my film and yours was like just the fact that they both took place in neighborhoods and were about something that we were passionate about, and like they both involved changes that needed to happen. Yeah, and a way that it affects the communication is because like it's a whole another way to communicate is through film, and you can really see what we're saying instead of just hearing it.
That's great. Yeah. Film is such a visceral medium. It's so powerful in that regard. Angelica?
Some connections towards the Great American Lie and Filters of Life are the effects of the economy, equality, goals, communication, freedom, and prosperity. These set of ideals affect the way I communicate with my family and society, making the American dream a lie. The economy shaped the way how often my family stayed home, how often we communicated, how many times we celebrated together, how many times I got to eat in a day, and how our household lacked vulnerability. The economy shouldn't determine people's values or mine, and Filters of Life allowed me to have the opportunity to open up to others and hear more voices. It made me realize that it only takes one person to make an impact amongst their communities.
Great, thank you. So have you ever felt that someone has sought to limit you based on your gender, your race, or your ethnicity? How old were you at the time? How did it make you feel? And what do you wish that that person knew about the impact of limiting a young person like yourself? And I can repeat any of those questions, but broadly speaking, who wants to start?
I can start. I'm just going to speak generally about this because there's been a few too many times in my life where I felt limited, but like being a child of color really limits you kind of twice as much because children are really limited and people of color are really limited. And they're just limited in ways like, oh, society doesn't think you can do as well as the next person. And I think that that really impacts them, and it just makes them believe that maybe they can't do as much or maybe they aren't as good as the next person. And yeah, I just really think that anyone who limits anyone else should know that there's no qualifications for age, race, gender that tell you what you can do. There's no, like a 2-year-old maybe can do more than the next 10-year-old can, there's no telling on what a person can do just by who they are and their identity.
Thanks, Traineesha.
I agree with Traineesha because I think at this age, people like to judge my knowledge just because I'm 17, and many times like teachers would say to me like, how do you know this? You're just 17. You don't know anything about that. But as far this, people can say and judge your age. Judge your knowledge by your age can either make a person feel insecure or, in my case, want to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 12 when I went to work because I saw my mom struggling to pay the bills, and I was never able to help her, and I didn't have the resources at the time. So growing up, the only place that I was able to go to was school, and I only had the option to be involved in community service. So I never had the transportation to go anywhere or the ability to drive. So most of the time I had to stay home with my mom and help babysit as my sister went to work. And I felt hopeless because I wasn't able to go out with friends or live my life as a teenager. And it made me feel isolated.
You guys, I love how authentic you all are, and I appreciate you being candid with us. It's very moving. I think it's such an important element to storytelling, so thank you. So, talk to me more about the ways that the Youth Media Academy experience impacted the way in which you view the world. Traineesha, do you want to start?
Yeah, in a more literal way, making a film allowed me to view the world through a camera lens and just really see things in a different way. But I've also gotten to see that storytelling is a very powerful way to tell your own story and to get something across. Like, for example, my poem, it was just a poem at first, there wasn't any visuals to it, and it was just words on a page that I could speak, But telling them through film is like a whole nother thing. Like, people can actually have visuals to look at it. And I even put the black screen for when the words are being read to really bring out the poem, but there's still like a neighborhood being shown in between. And the formatting of the visuals, it just really makes you think beyond what the words are being said.
That's right. That's great. Samira?
For me, the Youth Media Academy has really impacted the way I view the world, because I never would have thought I would have been creating my first film and being here with all of you. And it's just a really new experience for me, and that I love, and I'm glad to be here.
Great. Thank you. Angelica?
The Youth Media Lab set so many doors for me and opportunities. I was able to find my voice, connect with my community, enter film festivals, and reflect upon myself and environment.
Great. So you're all young female filmmakers, and as a fellow filmmaker and founder of the Representation Project, I've been committed to challenging harmful gender stereotypes and all of the ways that it intersects with other forms of oppression across society. So what's one gender-based stereotype that you're committed to disrupting and rebuilding with your own storytelling? Angelica, do you want to start?
Of course. A gender-based stereotype that I am committed to disrupt and rebuild is the over-sexualization of women. I see this in the platforms of social media everywhere today, and I notice that the younger generations are even influenced by it. Just like in misrepresentation, humans are not objects. People should be valued as whole human beings and not gendered stereotypes.
Thank you. That's great. Samira?
A gender stereotype that I think is wrong would be when a girl just wants to dress comfortable, like maybe some sweats, some oversized t-shirt when they're anywhere, but people see this, oh, you're dressed like a boy. Or it could be vice versa as well, like a boy who just maybe wants to wear a dress, or break those norms, and or paint his nails, and they see this as something feminine, when in reality, why are there rules?
That's great. Thanks, Samira. Traineesha?
I would like to start by saying I definitely agree with Angelica and Samira on those ones. Yeah, those are definitely true. And a stereotype that I would like to break and rebuild is the angry Black woman stereotype that's often portrayed in media. It's just such a misrepresentation as Black women as a whole. And, like I said, it's good to be understood. So, that's definitely something that needs to be changed.
Right on. I agree. We often hear about mentorship between two generations, but so much cultural change over the past several decades has really only taken off when younger generations like yourselves are leading the way. Perhaps those of us who want to see greater equality in society should be mentored by your generation. What do you want the adults watching this discussion to know about your views on equality? Traineesha?
Yeah. So for my experience, I've seen children as young as 5 and 6 out here speaking about being young activists. So I just want people to know that there's no age limit for activism. And my views on it, like the fact that there's 5 and 6 years old and they're speaking about this, it just means that like the inequalities in the world are just very blatant and very blunt and easy to understand. And it's easy to see that that's wrong. And it's easy to see that there are changes that need to be made. And so I just think that the younger you are, the easier it is for you to see these changes that need to be made. Like that's why there's young activists and children know a lot.
That's great. Thank you. Samira?
I agree with Trainisha. I want the adults to know that it doesn't matter what race, gender, color, or age you are, that if you're brave enough to want and to take that extra step to make your voice heard or to want to change the world, that anyone can absolutely do it.
That's great. Thanks, Samira. Angelica?
I agree with Samira and Tranisha. It's really important for adults to know that young voices need to be heard. Our age, culture, or experience shouldn't affect the way that people view us. It is really important to trust and listen to our generation. In Filters of Life, I was able to make my voice stronger and powerful. Women like AOC, Michelle Obama, Angela Davis, Dolores Huerta, and all these feminists and activists need more recognition, especially those of color. Their voices matter, and so does the youth.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to get into some of the audience questions. What specifically inspired the three of you to become filmmakers, or more specifically, to join the Youth Media Lab?
For me, it was just that, it was COVID during this time that we were doing the YMA program. So I just really didn't have much to do, and I was definitely open into all the opportunities that were coming my way. And this was one of them. So it just like being at home and not really doing much really made me want to try new things. And this was one of them.
Great. Thank you.
I agree with Tranisha. I was the type of person who always is involved in school and community service. And I saw this program as an opportunity to try something new and get into filmmaking.
And you're hooked, right? Awesome. Samira?
My dad's friend, Ernesto Quintero, is a really talented filmmaker that I really admire. So he came to me and told me about this opportunity, and I was thinking about it, and then I was like, oh, okay. I was like, let's do it. And then I did it, and yeah, so it was really great.
I love it. What was the most memorable part of the Youth Media Academy?
For me, the most memorable part was I thought I was done with my film, and one of my cohort members, her name was Janet Luna. If you watch my credits, she's in there. She really just challenged me to make the visuals different. So I had originally had the film all upside down, I believe. And she was like, and I was like, oh, that was a mistake, because it was a mistake at first. And she just said that maybe you should keep it like that, And then she explained how that could like tie into the title of it, like Black Pilots Backwards. So just getting to connect with her on that level, and just the experience of meeting other people like me who wanted to be filmmakers at a young age was really powerful.
I remember when I went to Annie DeGalda's house. She was a member of the Representation Project and Youth Media Academy. It was unforgettable when I went to visit her, because she was willing to help me with anything. And I remember that I felt like everything was not coming together, and everything was last minute. And so being able to record her family as part of my film was something that I can reflect upon myself and remember.
Something that I can remember in a positive way about the Youth Media Academy was really seeing how many young people all around the world can create such beautiful stories. And for me, I loved hearing every single one of the stories that were shown and that I had the privilege to see. And I think it's great that we're allowed to speak for people who are maybe afraid of speaking over some topics.
What was the most surprising part or a surprise to you in the filmmaking process? Or were there any growth moments or kind of aha moments that you experienced that you want to share with us?
I remembered when I filmed my film, I didn't have a tripod or any of the materials needed to be a filmmaker. And so I found a way to just adjust to what I had and still be able to accomplish the goal of just creating the film and make it come together.
That's great.
For me,
oh no, Samira.
Sorry. For me, I think one of the parts that surprised me was the editing, because I never done it before, and I was just editing and I never knew it was gonna be like that, but I finally got it done and I was proud of myself.
That's awesome. Yay. Traineesha?
I would actually say something similar to Samira. I did not know that filmmaking took that much patience with the editing process, but I got it done.
Did you have a favorite part though? Like for me, I mean, I love interviewing people, but then I love getting into the story and the crafting. And then I love the picture and every little frame, I'm so particular. And then you add the score and it's like, oh, nope, it needs to be a different instrument or it needs to shift here. Or we need, you played with sound. So Traineesha in a really cool way. So sound design is really fun too. Did you have a favorite part, all of you?
Yeah, I would say my favorite part was when I actually got a hang of the editing process and I was able to really know what I was doing and when going in with the sound and the video and everything. Yeah.
It feels really good, doesn't it, afterwards? It can be painful though. Oh my gosh. Those nights where I'm banging my head. Or Samira?
I agree with you, Traineesha. I think, I had many favorite parts during editing too, because after struggling to have patience to edit and get it right, I think my favorite part was when I finally did get it right and I saw everything flowing together nicely, and the music and the images and the videos and everything put together right really made me glad.
That's great. Angelica?
Yeah, I totally agree with Samira and Traineesha. My favorite part was editing and being able to see all the pieces come together at the end and see the accomplishment that you did and the hard work of everything coming together.
Traineesha, I have a specific audience question for you. What was the most challenging part of translating your poem into a film?
I would say the hardest part was even coming up with the visuals for it, because I knew that I wanted to speak on that topic and I wanted to incorporate my poem into my film, but I didn't exactly know how. So I just, I went on a walk with my dog and I was like, well, let me just record. And then I was like, oh, I can put the sound over it, but I didn't want it to be like boring and I wanted there to be like suspense in a way, So I just putting it together, I just really struggled to come up with an idea for that.
Great. Angelica, we were talking earlier and I was, sensing that you've got the commitment to filmmaking. I want to ask all of you, are you considering a career in film or another form of media? Are you hooked? And if so, or if not, but what kind of stories do you want to tell? Do you want to produce to have an impact on the world? Angelica, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm really interested in filmmaking and continue the process of it. I also want to continue the entertainment industry where I can just be an actor and just be able to be that character and show that feeling the same way as a filmmaker would be doing throughout the process of creating a film. And it's just very determination to see the process of just these different types of jobs that come together.
That's great. Trainisha or Samira?
Okay, I'll go. I'm not sure if I would make a career out of it, but I definitely feel like filmmaking is not just a one-time thing, it can be done anytime in any situation, so I just feel like that's definitely something I'll continue to do. I don't think I'll make a career out of it per se, but I'll always definitely have a urge to, pursue some type of filmmaking. And yeah.
Or Trainisha, even just communications, right?
Right. Yeah. And I really resonate with emotional stories. And I definitely think that those are always something that should be shared with others, like personal experiences, stuff like that. And I do want to pursue a career that has to do with, people's personal experiences and making life better and changing the world. So I just definitely think that capturing it all on film would be a part of that.
Great. Samira?
For me, I'm not really sure right now, but I think maybe in the future I will continue with making films because I really love the idea of bringing change in the world and showing people, telling them maybe things that they didn't know before, and really making an impact in this world before we all go back to what we were before. And
awesome. Another kind of big question that's important to me because it's always bothered me, and I also have 2 young daughters and 2 young sons who have been exposed to various forms of social media just with more time online, especially as a result of COVID. And it's heartbreaking to me what kids are exposed to in this day and age. The barriers are very few and far between to what is essentially at their fingertips. So the hypersexualization of females on social media was something that each of you saw as being a real issue. How can we educate young men and women, males and females alike, that all women are not objects or possessions? Thoughts here? Angelica?
I think that we should, or anyone in general, should treat themselves with respect first and present themselves how they want to be seen. That way, if we can start showing ourselves with respect, we can start changing the way how people think of us.
I think this really comes from the messages can be given to the boys or the girls and how they should treat each other. And it all starts through the radios or through the TVs or through any other people. And the music they listen to sometimes doesn't have, it gives really bad messages to the mind of others. And they start to think that this is how women should be treated, or this is how women should be portrayed.
And so have you guys been involved in any of our Not Buying It campaigns or Ask for More campaigns? I know you learned a little bit about that in the Youth Media Academy, but, standing up to using campaigns and social activism and social justice filmmaking to challenge limiting stereotypes and norms is one way to go, correct? Trainisha, did you want to say something more there?
Yeah, Samira was kind of touching on this, but when you bring up this issue and the fact that it's mostly on social media, I just initially think that it needs to be fixed on social media, we have to use what's we have to use what the problem is to make the solution. So we have to like change things on social media so that people will stop having this problem on social media. And yeah, I just think that that's where it needs to start.
You want to tell people where they can see your full films? Aside from through the Representation Project, is there any other thing you want to share with them through our website at the Representation Project? No? Okay, good. Well, I am so proud of all you guys, and I have more questions here. Let's see. What would you say you need from adults in society or your community so you can make the change that you need to see? Angelica?
I think that if you see support really, I think builds up, you know, if you want to do something, having your people's support and them having your back is always something, is always something really good that can inspire you to do more.
Yeah, it's really important to have supportive adults in our lives, if not at home, to find them elsewhere, right? And it doesn't always come from home, which makes it harder, obviously. But I had a wonderful childhood, but I definitely sought and have continued to seek relationships and support and mentorship outside because it's different perspectives and different wisdom and life experiences that ultimately I think enrich you and your life. And sometimes, unfortunately, home can limit us, right? As Angelica, you so eloquently exposed in your film. Any thoughts there on adults and how they can be more supportive?
Yeah, kind of like what Samira was saying, like we need their support. And I just feel like maybe them connecting us to other people, like, making connections and like maybe if they have children, like introduce us so that we can spread our ideas with different people in the community and just be able to reach out and have like a platform to share our ideas and our way of thinking and our need for change in society.
I definitely agree. I think that we need support from those that have connections and the opportunities to have that future for not only generations, but for ourselves as well, and be a better representation for everyone who's watching us.
One of the things I'm so excited about that we're working on at the Representation Project is creating more support for you beyond the Youth Media Academy, such that you have these internships and relationships with networks that we have that are, established media entities to, again, continue to expose you to, a diverse array of media makers and creators and storytellers to essentially mentor and sort of sponsor you if you so desire as you continue on this journey. So that's something I'm really looking forward to this year in particular. But final round robin question. So the Commonwealth Club has this tradition of asking speakers a question, and I'm gonna respond first and offer my response, and then I'd love for you guys to follow. But the question is, what is your 60-second idea to change the world? And mine is that as my film, The Great American Lie, explores, I want people to engage in their own truth-telling, to break bread with people who have different lived experiences, all with the goal of exploring our common humanity, both online and in real life, so that together we can shift hearts and minds, attitudes and behaviors, and reimagine the American dream for everyone who calls this country home. So that's mine. I'd love you guys to share yours. What is your 60-second idea to change the world or change America? We can start there. Who? Angelica, do you want to go?
Yeah, don't be afraid of failure. You can do something you love and still be able to give back.
It's great. Thank you. Wonderful. My husband will appreciate that. It's like his thing. Samira.
Okay. I think that in order to change the world, like Gandhi once said, be the change that you wish to see. Meaning, I think it all begins. In order to change the world, you must change how you view the world and your illusions and your mindset. And maybe if everyone listens instead of judging, and if there's more respect and love and compassion, and we all join together, then the world can prosper.
That's great. Thank you. So risk-taking, fail forward fast, coming together, listening to each other with respect and kindness. What about you, Trainisha?
My idea is young, compassionate leaders. So we just need young people to seek the problem and take steps every day to work towards changing it. Being compassionate to those around you and spreading love and just overcoming all the hatred in the world and the negativity.
Yeah, I have to say thank you for that, Trainisha. I really feel for you because I'm an adult that's, I'm 46. I'm a lot older than you guys. And I am really disturbed by all the hate in the world. And so I appreciate you all, having conviction and knowing truth and not being afraid to speak truth. But leading and leaning in with love and recognizing that we have to call out the hate and the misogyny and the racism and all the othering that is going on. So thank you for your strength and your courage in that regard, because it's a really, really scary time. And I don't know how you all handle it because you grew up with all of this social media, but also a lot of hate where in some ways it feels like, enough of us, because we didn't have social media when we were younger, we weren't exposed to all of this. We may have been exposed to it in our physical lives, but not, coming at you 24/7. And I know that it's wrong. And I want to wrap my arms around all of you and younger generations to just spread the love and remind you that it's not normal and you don't have to put up with it. And so it's one of the reasons I think our youth media work is so important, because I hope that you can keep feeling the love and support and leaning into, your power and the power of your voice and, just committing to, again, be the change you wish to see in the world, because we have a lot of work in front of us. Those were not my concluding remarks, but maybe I'm trying to remember what I was going to say, but I really want to thank you all. You are remarkable young women, remarkable storytellers. I want to thank you, Angelica, Samira, and Trainisha, for joining me for this special Commonwealth Club Youth Talks program. Thank you to all of our viewers. Thank you to the Gruber Foundation. If you'd like to learn more about the Representation Project's Summer Youth Media Academy and watch these and all of our student films, you can visit therepresentationproject.org/young-person. And if you'd like to learn more about the Commonwealth Club and their upcoming online programs, you can visit thecommonwealthclub.com/online. My film, The Great American Lie, is available for streaming on demand and on Amazon Prime and Apple TV. And I just, again, want to thank you for joining us and for sharing your stories and working with us to create a better world. You youth inspire me, and I just want to say we're partners on this journey of life, and I look forward to continuing to work with you and to do whatever I can to support you and to being your ally on this journey. And again, thank you for everything today, all of you who joined us. Keep, again, supporting Commonwealth. Get to know us if you don't already at the Representation Project. There's so much work to be done in this world to ensure justice and equality for everyone. I wish everyone a wonderful afternoon, a safe next few months to a year. Again, Jennifer Siebel Newsome here. This concludes today's program. Thank you all so much. Goodbye.